Welcome to the Dad of All Things podcast, where we dive into the world of fatherhood and beyond. I'm your host, Gerald Mr. BPOZ, a dad first with a multitude of interests. And today's episode is all about overcoming the struggles that we go through as dads. And I want to start by telling my own story. And I think it's the best way to start anything, right? Is to tell the inspiration behind how we got here in the first place. The last 2 weeks for me have been extremely difficult. And I wrote about this in my newsletter. If you're not subscribed, make sure that you subscribe to my newsletter so that you can get this information. But the last 2 weeks have been a struggle, to say the least. In March, we went on a road trip. And on that road trip, my son was in a very difficult accident. He was airlifted from where we were in Louisiana to Lake Charles, Louisiana, and then from there to Baton Rouge, Louisiana, because he had a small hemorrhage and brain bleed. That whole next 5 days were like a whirlwind for me. I think I may have slept 7 hours total. It feels like 7 hours. And then because I drove from Louisiana, I drove from Lake Charles to Baton Rouge and Baton Rouge back to Lake Charles, and from Lake Charles all the way back home to Vegas in the span of 4 days. And when I got back, I was extremely exhausted. And I just thought that was it. Like I was just exhausted from all the traveling and everything else, but I was in a funk, a full-fledged funk. I didn't want to do anything. I didn't want to get out of my bed. I didn't want to leave my bedroom. It almost felt like depression. Like I got scared. I even went down to the VA and scheduled me an appointment to see the therapist because I didn't know what the hell was going on with me. I just didn't have the energy for it. I didn't have the energy for shit. And I didn't know if it was like the combination of all of those things or if that was the problem. I mean, I think for myself, I learned that we all as dads fall into some sort of funk, whether it be from overextending ourselves in other areas or not meeting our own expectations or having too low of an expectation so that when we do accomplish things and fall, we fall too far and we can't generate the steam to even get back to being productive. All of that stuff for me, I don't know. I'm being honest. I don't even know what was happening. I just knew I was in a funk. I want to give you kind of my 4 steps to getting out of the funk. And that's extremely important to me because knowing that we all go into a funk is one thing. Knowing how to get yourself out of the funk on your own terms is more important. Oftentimes, we go into a funk and we have to wait and hope and wish that something comes along, excuse me, that something comes along and gets us out of the funk, whether it's a close friend or something like that. But I have 4 ways that you can get out of your own damn funk. Here they go. Number one is you have to acknowledge that you feel it in the first place. Often, like the whole 2 weeks that I was like in my head, messed up, every time my wife asked me, was anything wrong? I would say no. Every time she was like, are you okay? I would be like, yeah. Every time she would be like, you seem off, I say, you're crazy. Because I feel as a man, as a dad, that I'm almost not allowed to have these feelings. That is wrong. 100% wrong. It's also the reason why the first step is you have to acknowledge them. What do you feel? How do you feel? What are the things? For me, I was sad. I was disappointed. I was upset at myself that I didn't tell my son and daughter. I didn't give them better instructions on the ATVs that we were on prior to them getting into the accident. I blame myself for the accident. I think there's a part of me that then felt that because I blame myself, logically, I knew I shouldn't, and that made it worse. Like, I'm saying all of this out loud for one reason, because my wife told me that transparency is honesty without fear. And if you don't have fear, then you can help. So hopefully my transparency in these topics can help you because I'm not afraid to share them. But I was really struggling from an emotional standpoint. You're a dad. We all struggle. You're a man. We all struggle with these. Doesn't matter if you're not above it because you are a man. All right, number 2, seek support. And I'm not saying that you have to go do what I did, which is, I did my whole medical gambit. I scheduled an appointment to my primary care physician. I went talk to my doctor. I scheduled an appointment with my therapist, and I went talk to them, him. I talked to my wife, and I relied on my good dads group. The first per the f- the f- When my son and daughter got into their accident, the first place that I felt safe enough to share that experience was on my good dad's Facebook group. Not my personal Facebook group, not my business Facebook group, my good dad's. And the support that I got from those men was overwhelming for me. It let me know that one, those men understood the emotions that could be tied to experiencing something like that. They told me it was going to be okay, that they were supporting me. A bunch of them I know personally, so they reached out to me. They gave me phone calls, they sent me text messages, told me that I was in their prayers. And I promise you, it gave me a second sense, or like a cape, like if I was Batman or something. It made me feel like I didn't have to do this by myself. It made me feel like I can spread the burden out thinner to help me. I really needed that. The third step is once I acknowledged myself and I felt like I had been heard and seen, and that my group had given me almost the okay to feel these ways, then I knew I needed to reconnect with what my ultimate goal was and get back on track. Obviously, I couldn't jump into the middle of everything that I was already doing, trying to produce all the content and writing and everything else. I didn't have the energy for it too, but I wanted to reconnect with my goal, meaning understand why I'm doing this in the first place. Why am I doing this? And then what are the very small portions of this that I could actually do? What is the small parts? Like, what are the things, the individual things that I could do to allow me to start working again? And that was like, just get back in the office and write something, write one thing. And I wrote my newsletter. And that newsletter, I got 2 text messages just from that newsletter to let me know, like, hey, I understand, which is why I'm doing this video or why I'm doing this podcast, because people understand. You got to reconnect with your goals, something small, something simple. Reduce it to your minimum effective dose, your minimum effective work. What is the minimum you can do to still feel and know and be productive? It's the only thing that you needed to get back to, and then grow from there. And then the fourth one is that take small steps. So here's what I did, and I'll show this hopefully on the screen if you're watching this live, but I'll explain it to you pretty much in as much detail as I can. What I did was I redid my whole calendar, and I scheduled all my time in blocks from the time I wanted to wake up, what I wanted to do in those first few hours, when I was going to work, what I was going to do after work, uh, even sleep time. And I put in each section the minimum requirement that needed to be done for me to feel productive in each area. So I'll start from the top. Let me grab my iPad real quick and I'll kind of go over what I created on my calendar. Hopefully I'll be able to share this as well. So everything starts at 6:45. At 6:45, I wake up in the morning. The goal from 6:45 to 7:30 is to be awake before I have to take my son to school, get him to school on time because it is important to him. That was my minimum, is remember that getting Gerald to school on time is important to Gerald. That's it. It's important to Gerald. The next thing is I have a 2-hour block for doing something physical. The minimum requirement for my physical block is to walk my dog. You can see her down here if you're watching this on YouTube. Walk my dog to the stop sign, 25 push-ups, 25 sit-ups, 60-second plank. That is the minimum. That is the minimum for my physical part. The next block is from 9 to 11, and I have that one titled Lit Life, just living. I learned over time that I don't do a very good job of doing real work early in the morning. I like to meander and fart around and nothing important. So I have a block that allows me to do that. In that time frame, I read, I may have my earbuds in so that I can listen to I may have my earbuds in so that I can listen and do all of these cool things or whatever it may be. Like I really enjoy, listening to audio books and stuff like that. But also that I have some things that I actually want to get done for my family during that time. So I cook, I clean, nothing crazy. I It's set in here to say it's set in my calendar to either prep dinner or put something in the crock pot and do a load of dishes. That's my contribution to my household during the week. Not that I can't do more, but the minimum contribution is a load of dishes and prepping dinner. Then it goes right into work at 11. So from 11 to 5, I have it blocked off for work, and I have those sectioned off for what I want to do for work for the week. So Mondays are my recording days, Tuesdays is my editing days, Wednesdays are my writing days, Thursdays are my catch up days. So that whatever I didn't complete, I do that on Thursday. And then Friday is my scheduling day. So if you're watching this video or listening to this podcast, know that I recorded it on Monday, I edited it Tuesday, and then I scheduled it to go out last Friday. That's how it works. And it's the minimum. Obviously, I have a boatload of content that I would like to produce on a consistent basis. However, setting that as my expectation seemed to create more problems than it did anything else. When the expectation is too high, then it kind of creates this weird dynamic where if you don't meet your own expectation, then you feel like a failure. How the fuck is that happening? How do we allow ourselves to create a fictitious standard that we can't meet, and then when we don't meet, we actually judge our real lives by it? I think it's absolutely ridiculous, but we do it anyway. So to combat that, you got to get you a calendar with all your minimums in. So I have that on the minimums, and then from 5 to 8 is the most important block that I have. It is the reason why I scheduled it like this. My youngest son, Gerald, who I mentioned before, who was also in the ATV accident, which, by the way, I'll let you know that he is doing fine. He has made a full recovery. If you were worrying, he's made a full recovery and he's back to normal. But his goal and desire is to be a basketball player. And I want, because I'm not rich, I can't afford thousands of dollars worth of training, I have to take that on myself. So with that, I set up 5 to 8 to be the time that I devote for him. Now, in the past, I've kind of had this time already set for him, but because nothing else was scheduled, I always felt like I was stealing from my desire at work for my job, or not my job, but my business, to go do this with basketball. And I don't want to feel like that. I actually want to be present with him while he's training basketball and doing all of these other things. I want to be present and I don't want to feel guilty because I feel like I haven't done what I was supposed to do to earn being out here. I wanted to change the focus because the most important thing on my calendar is being available from 5 to 8 o'clock for my son. That means I need to get everything done, my minimums done, so that I can go out there at 5, fully present with no cell phone, no nothing, just a basketball, some sneakers, and my son. That is the focus. I I challenge you to find your real focus to why you're doing what you're doing. Why are you working so hard? I know it's not just to, get a hand clap from somebody or to feel like you are killing it or crushing it or you're an alpha male and feel like you have to be the top of the food chain. I know that it's a lot more cerebral than that. So I challenge you to find why are you doing this? Why are you working so hard? Why are you working yourself to death? And see if you can, the way my teacher wife explains it, backwards plan from there. This was the first thing that went into my calendar. Gerald basketball training and practices and workout. In there, I have like videos for workouts and things like that that we can use. He's attached to this calendar so that if something happens and I can't go, he has a plan of action for this. So I put all of that in for him. That is the most important part. And then from 8 to 11, I have chill with my wife, have dinner, and I don't know if you guys are partakers, as my one of my good friends, Aunt, my former barber before he moved, used to say. I don't know if you're partakers in the devil's lechuga, but as a military veteran with issues sleeping, I partake in the devil's lechuga at night so that I can go to sleep, and that is my time. Now, the reason why that's on there is because I would be so disjointed in everything that I was doing, like everything. Like I'd be so disjointed in everything that I was doing that I'd get overwhelmed. And they say that when you're overwhelmed, you are more susceptible to seeking out pleasure, whether that's through masturbation, uh, overeating, or something like that. What I would do is I'd smoke. I'd go outside and smoke because I feel like I'm stressed and overwhelmed. And the way to calm myself down, I smoke. But smoking also makes me completely fucking useless. I know there's a lot of people out there that smokes the devil lechuga who can build an entire building and paint the Mona Lisa and fucking all this other. I'm not that person. If I smoke, I'm going to bed. Or it's going to take me 3 hours to get to a place where I can like hang out and chill. So I put in there at that time that I can smoke at that time, and then I have another time like it's a it's like an alert. So at 11 o'clock it says you need to go upstairs. Like we don't have time to lose track of time. You need to go upstairs and start to begin your sleep routine. Shower, smoke again if that's what you're gonna do, and get ready for bed. And then at 11 o'clock, 12 o'clock, that is the bare minimum of when you need to be asleep. 12 o'clock so that you can get up 6.5 hours later. So that's my schedule to kind of combat like falling off the wagon. Is that most of the time when we fall off the wagon, there's nowhere to go back to because the place that you were operating at is so far ahead that falling back or taking the first step of your first step seems like a regression. And I want to let you know that it's not a regression. It is extremely important. It's important for you to be able to have a minimum. It's important for you to have a floor that's productive. I have a coach that I meet with. I used to meet with her once a week. Now it's kind of sporadic here and there. But I met with her today before I started this actual podcast. And I said something to her that I never really said out loud that I want to share with you. I said my problem was I set my expectation way too high, and when I didn't meet my own expectation, I would quit, or I would get into a funk, or I would feel like a failure, or whatever that emotion is. But when I was trying to get back on, I realized that either my floor was too low, or I never established a floor at all. And I think most of us would benefit from building the floor first, building your foundation first, not the ceiling, because our minds and dreams and everything else will create a ceiling that only God Himself can accomplish. I want you to focus on the floor. When it's time to step foot on the foundation, what does that look like? My calendar is my foundation. It is the bare minimum. And to be honest, if I committed to doing this minimum Monday through Friday, I'd be more productive than what I have been in the past. Because before, I'm balls to the wall, let's go, we doing it. And then I quit for 3 weeks. And then I'm back. It takes me a week or two to kind of like rev the engine back up. And then I'm at top speed, going full speed ahead for 2 months, maybe even 2 weeks. And then crash. And now I'm out the game. If I can just be consistent with what's on my calendar every single day, Monday through Friday, I'd be more successful than I've ever been. So I ask you, what is your floor? What is the minimum amount of work that you can get done to make you feel accomplished, that you've done something, and that if you didn't do anything else, you'd be okay? You'd feel like you worked. What is that for you? And then expand that to all areas. What is that with your children? What is the minimum floor of emotions to deal with your children? What is the minimum activities that you want to do to show your wife or spouse that you love and care for them? What is the minimum activities that you'd like to do around your house so that your honey-do list gets done and doesn't stack up on you? What are those things? And I challenge you, I really challenge you to build your floor. So I'll leave you with that. I hope that you got something out of it. This is my first podcast, kinda, of 1,000 podcasts, but this is the one I want to do. Dad of all things, because I'm a dad first, but I have many, many, many interests, just like you. So, like, share, subscribe, and please leave a review on wherever you listen to wherever you listen to podcasts. Leave a review because that helps us get the word out. And if you like this, I invite you to join my newsletter, the Good Dads newsletter. I'll put the link in the description. Other than that, that's it. Y'all take care. I appreciate it. Sayonara.